So now that we've had a chance to melt your brain with some closures, we want to show you some common mistakes that happen with closures and then maybe give you some preventative measures to make sure that you don't make those same mistakes. The most common mistakes with closures occur inside loops. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to make a torpedo assigner for our Cove's submarine. Let's take a look at that. We'll build a function called assignTorpedo. That means we're going to try to give a specific passenger on the submarine a torpedo to be in charge of. We'll pass in the name of a passenger, as well as a list of those passengers. We'll establish a torpedo assignment variable that's going to eventually hold our torpedo assignment function. And now we'll build a loop that checks the entire passenger array for the specific passenger that we want to assign a torpedo to. So when we find the passenger, we will start to build a function, and inside that function, we'll alert ahoy to whoever the passenger is, man your post at torpedo number, and then we will use their index value, adjusted for 0, to assign them to the right torpedo number. Then, of course, at the very end, we will return our torpedo assignment variable that holds our function expression. Now we'll establish an array called subpassengers, and we'll put a whole bunch of passengers in there that you may recognize. Next, we'll make a new variable for a new function called giveAssignment, and then we will call our assignTorpedo function. We'll pass in Chewy as the passenger we want to assign a torpedo to, as well as the list of all of the subpassengers. Then, when we call our giveAssignment function, we should expect that, oh no, what happened? Ahoy Chewy, man your post at torpedo 9? That's no good. Chewy's not in index 9. What happened? It should be torpedo 4. So the mistake that we made here is not knowing that closures bind values at their very last opportunity. It's really important that we pay attention to when we return our functions and the final variable states that happen when we do the return. So way before torpedo assignment ever gets returned, the I loop counter has progressed in value all the way to 8 and stopped the loop. What happens then is that 8 plus 1 happens to be 9 when the torpedo assignment variable is returned. The function's actual return is really when the closure occurs. That's when the environment is packaged up together with all of the necessary variables and returned. So when we called our torpedo assigner for Chewy, the I value that was actually in the function was 8, and so he got torpedo 9. But what can we do to sort of ensure the correct value every time? There are several options that we could use. Let's take a look. Well, first of all, if we get rid of the torpedo assignment variable entirely, right, and just have a function expression, then if we scoot our function keyword over and automatically and instantly return as soon as we find our passenger, then we will have locked I into place, and when we call our function, we find out that Chewy is assigned to exactly the right torpedo. And that's because I, the I value, our loop counter, was not allowed to progress. A second way that we could ensure the correct value is to design our torpedo assigners just like we did our ticket makers for the modes of transport. Let's take a look at that. So we'll change our function's name to makeTorpedoAssigner. But this time we will only pass in the passenger array, not the name and the passenger array, because the name variable we're going to pass into our function expression. Inside our function expression, we'll have our loop. Notice now that the loop is inside the function expression. Something to note here as well is that passenger array is actually being closed into our function expression. Notice that passenger array is a parameter and not a variable we ever established inside of our function. That's because parameters can be closed up too. So inside our loop, we'll of course check to make sure that we've found the right name, and when we do, will alert our message. Again, the only closed variable that ever comes from the external scope is passenger array, and that never changes. Woohoo, we love that. And now we can pass torpedoes out like they are candy. TIE fighter dead ahead, but we're sort of underwater. Submarine. Anyway, so when we finally make our torpedo assigner, and then we pass Chewie to our getTorpedo4 variable, we'll get that Chewie has torpedo4 just like we wanted. Additionally, we could call it again, but this time for R2-D2. And we should get that torpedo6 belongs to R2-D2, and we do. Super cool. You're a closure master, and we will see you very soon after you tackle these exciting challenges.
That time of day.
I've had no beers.